My name is Yair Davidiy, and we research our organisation, our movement, Brit-Am, Hebrew Nations, researches the whereabouts of the lost 10 tribes, and we have found them amongst Western peoples. That is where the lost 10 tribes are today. They are amongst Western nations. We're not saying that everyone in those places, belongs to the lost 10 tribes, so that is where they are to be found. And a good proportion of the peoples in those regions are descendants of Israel, and they lost consciousness of their ancestry. And we want to know why. We want to explain why. What was the master plan? What was the master plan for the whole of the Bible? What was the idea of Jacob and Esau? Why did Isaac think that Esau should have the birthright? Why did Jacob have to take it by trickery? When they came out of Egypt, they were given commandments. They were also given an obligation to conquer the land. What happened? What was the intention, as if to say, for the whole world under those? What was the intention for what should be done for the whole world if they had have kept the commandments? What should have happened? And why were the lost 10 tribes exiled? If they had not have been exiled, what would have been the development? What would have evolved from what they were? What were they supposed to do? Or what were they intended to do? Or what could they have done? And as if to say there was a master plan, an overall intention, and that could have been played out, but which was not done so. And we are, as if to say, doing the plan B. We are doing the de facto, the default arrangement that was already in place from the beginning. That is what we are playing out, and what is going on. So we have studied the sources, and this is our overall impression, and it corresponds with the biblical records, and it's worth thinking about. It's something to work on. So first of all, we had Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. They were the forefathers of the Israelite nation. Originally, there were two twins were born to Isaac, Jacob and Esau. Esau was the firstborn. Isaac intended to bless Esau, as if to say, to give him the firstborn rights, but he was tricked into blessing Jacob in his stead. But what was the intention? So the intention was that Esau, as if to say, should represent the power in this world, the power of military might, the power of dominance, whereas Jacob should be concerned more with the spiritual realm. But divine providence so decided that since Esau was not worthy of fulfilling his part of this arrangement, of the plot, as if to say, it all should go to Jacob, and Esau should have a secondary role. He should still be one of the most powerful nations in the earth. He should still have a great influence in the future. When he repents, he may also have a secondary role. It may come back to him at some degree when he reaches an arrangement with Yaakov. But the task as a comprehensive whole goes to Jacob. Jacob, from henceforth, after taking the firstborn rights, henceforth had the task, as if to say, of being a great and military nation, of conquering all of the earth, or of dominating all of the earth, and also of civilizing it, and also of bringing a religious understanding to mankind. That was henceforth the task of Jacob. Jacob was known as Israel. It was renamed Israel. And Israel went down into Egypt, and he increased and multiplied, and then the Egyptians oppressed him, and they came out of Egypt, and they received the Torah. They received the Torah, and Moses was there, and Moses was their leader, and Moses taught them. And then they conquered the land under Yahushua, and they expanded, and they built the land, and under Solomon, they built the temple. And the intention was that they should, as we said, dominate all of the earth, and also bequeath to the nations of the earth an understanding of divinity of God Almighty, the God of Israel, and of his requirements, basic requirements of morality for all of mankind, whilst they would keep all of the Torah and elevate through keeping the Torah and through rulership the rest of humanity and themselves. This was the task that was set for them, but they were not up to it. They were not able to fulfill it. Also, the world was not ready for them, and they were not ready for the world. So, as if to say, it had to break apart. The 10 tribes, that is the majority of the Israelite nation, had to go down to the level of Gentiles, since they had effectively become Gentiles in their own land. In their own land, before they were exiled, they'd worshipped, they'd gone in the ways of the foreign peoples. They adopted the customs of foreign peoples, the ways and the thought processes of foreign peoples, of Gentile nations. They'd become primitive. They'd lost a lot of what they had. Indications are they had lost even the gifts of literacy and other aspects that the Israelites had had from the beginning. And in effect, they had become almost the same as Gentiles whilst they were still in the land, and therefore they were exiled, taken into captivity, taken to different sections of the Assyrian Empire. And in these areas, they further lost consciousness of who they were. But meanwhile, they were to go down, as if to say, go down to the level of the Gentiles, and through the processes of history, historical processes, to evolve upwards to great nations, to greater civilization, and to uplift the rest of the world with them. And we identify the lost 10 tribes with peoples who created Western civilization, and this is what they have done. And we're not, as we've said before, emphasized before, we're not saying that everyone is descended from Israel in these areas, but a significant portion are, and that is where the lost tribes were. And this is what they did. They created the French Empire, the Dutch Empire. They created civilizations in Scandinavia, and also in the British Isles and the British Empire. And after the British Empire, the Americans who evolved from them, and through them they have influenced all of mankind. They have, as if to say, elevated all of humanity, despite having done much evil, one could say, much negative things, much practices that were negative, much policies that were mistaken. On the whole, they have been a civilizing influence to mankind throughout their history, and this is what they were supposed to have done, and this is what they are still doing. This was the plan for them, but they do not know who they are, and it is as if to say the religious aspect of what they should be doing went to the other half, who did not lose their identity, went to Judah. And this too is what Judah has been doing. Judah has been keeping the law as well as he can, and he has been developing the law according to the mandate that was given him to do so. So we have the Judah keeping the law, and Joseph, that is the lost 10 tribes, civilizing humanity. And in the end times, they shall come together, and the two aspects of what they should have been done of the overall master plan will be fulfilled.